What's happening, guys? Here's a quick introduction to our 351 Boss, a 460 cubic inch fire-breathing small block. That's right, this is not a 460. In fact, this is my one complaint with this crate engine, is that they didn't make it something like a 459 or a 458 or a 461, just because it's got a lot of confusion. Everyone thinks it's a 460. But this is a Windsor-based 351, so externally a Windsor. It will bolt in place of a Ford small block bell housing, Ford small block motor mounts, Windsor accessories. You can put a Windsor intake on this, Windsor headers, etc. We have a serpentine drive from Ford, but anyways, I digress. Ford sent us this crate motor for our Bullnose project, Norma Jeane, which is super, super exciting. And this engine is so awesome and exciting. I want to take a minute to talk about it. This is a really, really cool option versus Godzilla or Coyote. Nowadays, it's flipped so far on the other side of the spectrum that people just say, Godzilla or Coyote, what should I pick? And they forget that there's such a cool line of really modernized Ford small blocks. So to put it into perspective, if you look on Ford's website, this is $12,500. Might seem like a lot, and it is a lot. But what you're getting for the money is a 24,000 mile warranty, just like the Godzilla, just like the Coyote, except this thing makes a whole crap ton of power. The Godzilla is a 10 grand from a Ford Performance Crate motor. You still have to buy accessory pack, so that's gonna bring it to $12,800 with the accessory pack. You still have to buy accessories. The Coyote crate motor with no accessory pack is $12,500. So this is a very comparable engine to compare. Let me just get that out of the way. Now let's compare them. So just the same warranty, you get a completely aftermarket block. This is not just a Windsor block that they bored and stroked. This is a Siamese diesel metallurgy cast. So the same steel they're making the Power Stroke blocks with, the same iron. They cast this block with Siamese bores, splayed four bolt mains. You get forged internals, completely forged internals, a scat crank, scat rods, Molly forged pistons, ARP hardware. This thing's ready to go. Ready to go. You could boost this engine if you wanted to. In fact, I think at the very end of our project here, we might throw a little bit of boost at it just to make it awesome. But this is going in a 1985 F250. It's so exciting. It's gonna be such a fire breather. And okay, let's compare it now to, I'm gonna pick up the phone here. Let's compare this to a Coyote and a Godzilla. All fantastic engines, absolutely fantastic engines. So in yellow here, this is the factory dyno graphs. This would be engine dyno, not at the wheels. But we've got our Coyote here, which is a fantastic sports car motor, or they're great in trucks too, just depending on the use case. But we have a horsepower going all the way to 7,500 RPM on the Coyote. And that's what makes them so cool. They sound amazing and they rev to the moon. And a lot of people really like that, and they're so fun to drive because of that. We have our torque curve on the Coyote in purple coming down. You're starting at about 150 foot-pounds at 2,000 RPM, gradually increasing all the way to 415 foot-pounds at around just under 5,000 RPM, and starting to drop down all the way to 7,500. And this is a Gen 4 Coyote. So this is the latest Coyote you would buy from Ford Performance. Next, our Godzilla, which I think is the greatest thing Father Ford has given us in a very long time. They're awesome engines. They're super reliable. They are just workhorses, and they're pretty efficient too. So we have a very respectable 400 foot-pounds of torque all the way down at 2,000 RPM, peaking at 475 foot-pounds at just over 4,000, and dropping down to about 300 and so foot-pounds of torque at 6,000 RPM with a peak of 430 horsepower. Now, that's a stock Coyote. This is what you'd find in a Super Duty. No tuning, no performance, etc. And this is our out-of-the-box 351 Boss, which is at 2,000 RPM, is just under 500 foot-pounds of torque, and it stays there all the way to 6,000. It's giving you that much torque all the way to 6,000. It's giving you power stroke, 7.3 power stroke torque, and better, all the way to 6,000 RPM with a peak of 575 foot-pounds and 575 horsepower at, it was like 5,500 RPM or something, whatever, 56, whatever it ended up being. But just an absolute beast of a motor. Really, really cool, you know, choice for a lot of hot rods. And so let me also show you a little bit about this. So, like I said, this is not just your grandpa's Windsor. Aluminum Z heads, which is awesome. You have the 351 Boss block, totally unique. ARP hardware in everything. They ran it for 30 minutes too, which is very cool. So you get a hot test. Focus here. We had 86 pounds of hot oil pressure at idle. Holy crap. At 195 degrees, it says that it ran for 30 minutes. It comes with a water pump. They sent us the full accessory drive too, which is serpentine with a 240 amp alternator. How cool is that? That's like a factory Godzilla alternator, basically. You get this really cool racing SFI certified harmonic balancer for performance markings. I mean, this is just an absolutely beautiful, has all of the little tags. Just an absolutely beautiful engine. So once again, I'm so excited that this is gonna be in our Bullnose project. I mean, this is the coolest engine. It's such a compact little package. It's got a fabricated 7-quart oil pan. This is all from Board Performance. And what we're gonna be doing with this is multi-port fuel injection. And we're probably gonna be using a Holley Terminator to do that. And we'll go through and show you guys how easy it is to set up different types of fuel injection on these engines, as well as just carbs. And the benefit, again, to these over a modern choice for a lot of folks, and there's no one size fits all in this game, but the benefit to this engine for a lot of folks is the fact that it'll drop in. It'll bolt in to a classic Ford pickup truck or car. You'll be able to use your factory fuel system, factory transmission, etc. Although this thing's going to be a factory transmission smashing machine is what it's going to be. So we're going to blow up the T18 in our Bullnose truck, I think, pretty quickly, and then we will be replacing it with an awesome Tremec of some sort. And but again, you know, like the Godzilla and Coyotes, I love them to death. They're awesome, but bare minimum, you're changing your transmission, you're changing your fuel system, you're changing a lot of wiring. And so for a lot of folks, it just kind of, you know, snowballs out of control. But this engine is a drop-in. You can put a Edelbrock intake or a Holley intake or whatever on it and run a carburetor with your factory fuel system. So it even has, we're gonna block it off for our case, of course, but you know, it has its own fuel pump. So mechanical fuel pump, you can run an OEM mechanical fuel pump type setup with a carburetor, no problem. So for a lot of people, this makes a lot of sense. This is an engine swap that if you're a little mechanically inclined, you could do with a buddy in the driveway or with your dad or whatever. And you don't have to get into the full Godzilla Coyote swap type deal. And let's be honest, at the end of the day, you're gonna spank those guys on the street. You're absolutely gonna spank those guys on the street for the same amount of money on the engine and not having to replace the transmission. It's really, really cool. So Ford's got a lot of these awesome crate motors. They have the same warranty, and we're just so stoked about this. It's gonna be so silly in that Bullnose. But Anyways, yep, really excited to do it. We're gonna be running I believe it's a trick flow intake for multi-port. We're gonna be running a Holley Terminator. Holley has a distributor that will act as a crank and cam signal for the Terminator, the coolant temp sensor that comes with the kit, the oil pressure sensor, or it doesn't need that, and then it comes with it's gonna run speed density. So it's gonna come with air intake temp and throttle position sensors on a carburetor style throttle body. So it'll look old school, but be totally, totally new school. And again, this is not, let me just re-emphasize this for the 5th time, this is not just an old 351 Windsor. This is a totally redesigned block. It's totally built internals. And this is just a really, really stout engine. Hydraulic roller. You don't need some special fancy high zinc oil like you do with the 60s or 70s, you know, flat tappet setup. This is a very modern engine that is just a beast, an absolute beast. So we're gonna see how efficient it is. I mean, that's the one thing you really get from like a Coyote and a Godzilla. You get great efficiency. And I imagine that this thing's gonna be less efficient. But, you know, with multi-port fuel injection and the right gearing and the very, very, very cautious driving on a longer trip, it might be all right. It might be pretty efficient. So we'll keep you posted. This is gonna be a really fun build. Yeah, hope you enjoyed. This is gonna be a fun one to follow.